I just really was like soaking up everything from the cultural norms, but it really was just like, you gotta go into every room and you gotta leave with something.
Welcome to the Your Next Move podcast. Today, y'all, we have a special guest. And I just realized that we were both high school cheerleading captains, so I'm even more excited. It just makes me love her even more. But I need to read some receipts because here I like to give people their flowers. Dre launched her career in television as a media pro and a self-taught makeup artist. She's honed her skills and cultivated creative community on set for over 15 years. She has worked with the likes of MTV, Bravo, WEtv, Food Network, Comedy Central, Refinery 29, Cosmopolitan, Complex, 17, Essence, Black Enterprise, Unilever, and celebrity talent. Y'all, I can go on and on and on. I had the pleasure of meeting Dre when we were both speaking at an event. I believe, was it in New Orleans?
I don't remember. I thought it might be
St. Louis.
St. Louis.
It was in St. Louis.
She
Yes, St. Louis. And I was captivated by Dre and her personality. This season on Your Next Move, I want to do some career profiles. Many times when we're talking about the world of work, we may want to make a transition, but we've never seen someone do it. We don't understand the ins and outs of what it's like to be in that career, especially with creative careers. And Dre has a resume. So you've done all the things everywhere with everybody with a special focus on, I'd say, media, entertainment, and beauty.
Yes.
So can you take us back to the beginning?
You want to take you back down that road? Well, yeah, I started I'm a Howard graduate.
Okay.
I went to HU, Bison all day, studied media, studied journalism, came out with an understanding that creating was always going to be a part of the business, but Howard make you learn how to make money. They teach you how to enterprise. So I started my career at MTV Networks.
Okay.
I went straight into music marketing at VH1. And this was in 2005.
Okay.
And back in the day, there was so much to be done and there was so much money available as far as like to produce things. You could, as a young entry-level professional, could be thrown into a position of authority very quickly.
Got it.
So though I was young, I was on the ground running actual productions from, hip hop honors to VMAs to being on the ground with celebrity talent and moving around. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But because there was so much to be done and there was a energy of kind of like everyone was a creator, I learned really quickly that you can learn on your feet and learn in the midst of things and to just be like a waymaker, which is truly like how I started. And I don't like rules, right? So like, it's not that I am like out here, I'm a rebel. I'm like, ooh, I want to but I'm a Pisces, I'm a free spirit.
Okay.
So, and I'm a hustler by nature. So I started doing makeup in undergrad at Howard because I don't know how to fold shirts. And so I wasn't getting that job at BB or the Gap because they just was like hating. I'm like, they gonna buy them anyway. But
you didn't have that perfect.
I didn't have that perfect square going.
Okay.
So I said, I gotta find some way to hustle. So the community was just vibrant with creatives. So whether it was people who were producing fashion shows or dancers, and my roommate happened to be a dancer. So I started doing makeup kind of just like loosey-goosey. Now, mind you, let's frame this up. Pre-YouTube, pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook. Facebook started the year I came out of college.
Yep.
So literally it was, hey, Essence Magazine, tear out a page, walk up to my friend, you look like this girl, can I do this on you? That was my practice. Wow. There was no one teaching me, hey guys, like and subscribe. None of that existed.
Got it.
So it was like, okay. And the most that we knew was to go to the Mac counter at the Macy's and buy stuff. So when I got to New York, I didn't even know that being a makeup artist was something you could actually do and make money. So going into television gave me that purview. So
Yes.
here I am, I'm in production, and I'm seeing that there's always these dope people pulling these cases onto the sets, and they do the makeup and they leave, and they getting, and I'm looking, because I'm asking questions to the producers, these people are getting paid pretty well. So I started to kind of hustle my way into being like a dual professional. I had that 9 to 5, don't get me wrong, because mama said, if you don't have a job, you bringing your little behind back to the country. So I was living in New York, and it was just a necessary hustle. So yeah, I started at VH1, moved over to MTV. I was there for many years, and I never felt like I had to hide the side life.
I love that.
So I told people, I would rather have a female version of this analogy, but I said I had a Clark Kent Superman thing going on.
Got it.
And so by day, I was working in integrated marketing, branded entertainment, production, all those cool things. And I would literally be like taking my sick days to go and work on set for the company I was already working by day for. And I didn't care if somebody saw, I didn't care.
Oh, I love that.
Girl, I was like,
let them pay you two ways.
That's why I wear baseball caps on set, because you just pull it down. They don't know who you are. But my whole thing is like, I was just literally, I would go into like the productions and be like, can I assist you? My name is Dre. Here's my Model Mayhem. Because that was the first thing. That was pre-YouTube. We had a site called Model Mayhem. I don't know, RIP. I don't know what it turned into. If I saw my profile now, I'd probably burn the picture.
It's like seeing MySpace.
Yeah, it's in the graveyard of the internet. But yeah, and then it became a dual life that I was intent on managing. And I did that for a decade, having one foot in and one foot out. To the point where, like, by the time I jumped around networks, went from MTV to Bravo, and then my last post was at WEtv. Each time, growing in my, I was a director before 30. I was definitely about this, like, corporate understanding that you still have to deliver.
Yep.
And I was growing to the point, by the time I got to Bravo, I had my own book of makeup clients. So I was working on music videos and, independent films and things like that. And so, yeah, I landed in 2012 at WEtv, and I was in a really cool role there where I was doing not just production and experiential things, but I was working with interest-based projects. So like charity partnerships and women's interest and things like that. And that sparked something in me that then led me to transition in 2013.
I absolutely love that.
And then the world changed.
Everything changed. We're going to get to that.
We'll get to that. I didn't want to, we'll go down there after a commercial break.
I love that. So one thing that you said earlier that I want to touch on that I think is very different, you said that Howard taught you how to make money.
Yeah.
And I think that that's very different, because I was going to ask you a question about, like, what did you learn from schooling versus life lessons? And it sounds like schooling, that is something, like, as I went to a PWI, I can't say that my undergrad or grad taught me how to make money. So can you kind of go into that a little bit more, especially for us who haven't come to HBCU or haven't gone to HBCU? Because I feel like I've heard a lot of HBCU grads say something about HBCU taught me how to hustle, it taught me how to make money, taught me how to grind, taught me excellence. And I don't hear folks from PWIs necessarily say that in the same way.
You know what? I would say that I agree with you, because I have friends that didn't go to Howard but went to other HBCUs. When I say Howard taught me how to make money, Howard basically was like, you are here to develop as an adult. You are here to develop as a person, to learn about your people, to learn about. But one of the things I took away from my Howard experience, it's not enough for you to be at the table. You must create culturally impactful equity and infrastructure. And that, and the layman is money. You have to create the currency that all those other mainstream communities are valuing, because you might have been the one in your neighborhood that got out, but once you get into the real world, you're just going to be in the sea of other exceptional Black candidates that your presence there is just not enough. It's not enough to move the culture forward. And Howard was always like creating leaders for the the world, for the global community. And that was the thing, was you have to push the culture forward. You can't just be out there getting your own check. So the money was like, make your money, but also build, like carve some indelible structures into the culture so that we then have that to build on top of. So that's what I mean in the sense of like, you know, and the funniest thing is like, I work with people I graduated with all the time, where we were in like African American studies together, and now we're at tables making deals, and it's like it don't feel any different because we have that kind of kinship. But yeah, the hustle was born. I had 8 internships in undergrad.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Like,
and I knew, and I felt like I was a little slacking because there were people who did more. And I minored in the School of Business. If you hear across the world, Howard University School of Business ain't nothing to play with.
Not at all.
And so you just, you know, the norms were set. That's what it was. It was a norm setting space, because I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. None of my family had left Virginia to attend, you know, to further their education beyond my father, who went into the military. So I didn't have the norms. I didn't even know, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know what Greek organizations were. So and I'm not Greek, but so the norms when I'm outside of like what I saw in Different World. And you know what I'm saying? And so like, I just really was like soaking up everything from the cultural norms, but it really was just like, you gotta go into every room and you gotta leave with something.
I love that so much. I think, so for me, my background, I was raised like a very small town, one of the few, if not the only minority K through 12. So when I went to look at college campuses, I remember my sister and I would count the amount of Black people we saw. And I don't know what number was a good number. There was no real scale.
Did you ever get to be on 2 hands?
One time, funny story, I wanted to be a music major when I started. So I was auditioning on various campuses, like for scholarships. So we got to, I think it was the University of Delaware. Okay. And we pulled up, and I believe it's either the University of Delaware or it's Towson. I forget which one. But the athletic center is before the main campus. So, but you don't know that if you've never been there. So we pulled up to the University of Delaware, and it was the athletic center. And coincidentally, the entire football team.
You see all the Black players, and you like,
the football team was letting off of practice. So they all had to go around my parents' car. And mind you, I'm a little girl who's only seen beautiful Black men on TV at that point. Like, we just got BET when I turned like 16, 17 in my hometown. So I was just like, oh my God, I love this school. I want to go here.
I want to go here. I feel my needs will be met.
100%. My parents were like, really? Because it was like, and a football team was like 90 boys like going across the car, and me and my little like junior or senior level self, like me and my sister, like 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just counting. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
If this is it, we're trying out to be
something. I'm going to go here.
Athletic assistance. Can I be a water girl?
Anything. Something. But I was also at the same time, I was so afraid to be in an environment that was like unapologetically Black, because unapologetically Black environments were like family reunions for me. And I always got made fun of at family reunions because I knew Abercrombie, I knew Hollister, I knew LFO.
You talk like a white girl?
All the time.
That was me.
I was an Oreo, all of it. So I was afraid. I thought that going to an HBCU would be family reunions where I get made fun of the entire time. I didn't realize there were other Black girls, like we would have been friends, other Black girls who'd be just like me, and it was okay. So like there's a part of me that really wants to go, I have a master's degree, but I'm like, what if I just go get a little Howard MBA? Like get a little something just so I can have a little HBCU.
Put your toe
in. Something, but I'm like, I don't want the homework.
We welcome you. No, I'm serious. I felt the same way. I grew up in my family. We lived in a lower income community. But my parents were like, we're going to find the higher level educational resources. So my family, I'm the youngest of 3. So I got grandfathered going into, I don't know if they still call them this, but like a magnet school.
Yes.
When we were kids. And it was like, it was such a it wasn't isolating, but it was a very diverse community, but it was like so unlike the real world. We had a white principal who would like do sing-alongs, and like it was like
I love it.
So we didn't realize that we were in the seat of the Confederacy, and nobody really shared with us the dynamics that were really around us. Like the one of the leaders of the KKK in my community lived across the street from my high school.
Wow.
And his family stayed in that, and so literally in that house. So literally when I got to my high school, my mother went to that high school. When I got to that high school, I went at a district because it was an international baccalaureate high school.
Yeah.
And so I was the girl that going through magnet school and all of these, because my parents just were like, you deserve to have the fullest education. You talk like a white girl, because I spoke properly and I articulated. Or then when I got to high school, my mother literally dropped me off in front of the school, and she looked across the street and she was like, you don't say, they still over there. And when she went to high school, she started high school the first year of integration at that high school.
Wow.
And so it was just like you could be in a community, but I needed Howard. So the same way you say that you went and you were like, I don't know if this is going to be cute, because I'd be damned if somebody going to play me in the dance contest, like the family reunion.
Yes.
I felt the same. I felt almost like, I'll be honest, I had a Black counselor at my high school who all 4 years I was like, yo, I would cleave to her, because I was like, she's going to get me where I need to go.
Yeah.
And I got into all the schools I applied to. I got into Howard, I got into Spelman, and those were the top two. And I was talking to her and kind of going over my, and I was really leaning towards Howard. And she was like really pushing me in another direction. And she said, well, I'll just see you when you come back with an afro and a dashiki. And she was a sister. And so when I got to Howard, that's when I learned how dynamically different and diverse we are as a people.
Yes.
There isn't one kind of Black folk.
Nope.
But where I grew up, I only knew that. So when I say the norm setting came in at Howard on a level that I didn't expect, it was like I had to have that. Because otherwise I wouldn't have known that they were Black families that did not use food stamps. There are Black families that have 3 and 4 generations of wealth. There are Black families who ain't never lived in the projects. And I thought that was like, and there, are Black families that understand the nuances of mainstream white America in a way that I didn't. And getting into Howard gave me all of that.
I love that.
But,
girl, I feel like you're selling for me to go back to school.
I couldn't but I didn't know. I didn't know. All I knew was something in my spirit felt like that's where I needed to be. And I went through all kinds of identity crises. I had my Erykah Badu phase. I had my, I marched. I was a fashion girl. I was, you just finding yourself.
And that's college, though. It's going through the entire experience and allowing it to evolve, allowing yourself to evolve over time.
What did you like? I'm curious, because now that I know we literally needed to be each other's support group. When you found yourself in those places where you were like in the PW, who was your tribe? Like, who did you?
So the crazy I love that question.
I mean, your sister. You said you had a sister. You guys weren't in school at the same time.
No, so she's 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
So it's so interesting, because if you look back at my college photos for undergrad, I only hung out with Black and Latinx folks.
Okay.
If you look at my photos, and it wasn't intentional either. Like, I didn't do it on purpose, but it happened. So I 100% found my people. Like, I was in BSU. I worked at the athletic center. Like,
definitely.
Yes, clearly I got a thing for athletic centers.
Hey,
like
free gym membership.
All the things. I'm like, I found my people over time.
Yeah.
So it didn't feel like I was at a PWI. I know now, especially after working in higher ed for 10 years, I know it was very much a PWI.
Capital P.
100%. Yes, 10 out of 10 PWI. But my experience didn't feel that way. When I look back on my friends, the people I connected with, I would have thought I had my own experience.
Yeah. And you made it so because you had your own identity too. Because that's a big thing. Is like, if you have a solid kind of cultural foundation in your family and, you know, regardless
well,
of
my godmother's always been that. My godmother's that woman in my life who, even as a child, like when you bought me dolls, they used to be black dolls. Yeah. We get black Barbies. We get the black Cabbage Patch. Like we get the black history book. Like even in my bathroom right now, in my guest bathroom, I have a book on queens and it's all different hairstyles. I have
that on my dining table. On my coffee table.
I love it. All the things. My godmother was very much that force in making sure I understood Black history, Black culture, all the things. She was so big on that because she knew that I didn't have that in my hometown, and I went to a PWI. So she wanted to make sure I found that. And now I feel like I try my best to create spaces for women, and especially women of color, to connect. Because I always
authentically.
I think it's probably one of my biggest regrets. I don't have a lot of them, but I think it's probably one of my biggest regrets that I wasn't bold enough when I graduated school to go to an HBCU. Like I went and I looked at Spelman too. Like I wanted to go, but I was just so afraid. I didn't have an advocate in my corner who'd be like, girl, like you gonna be fine. And I was a little nervous. And it was also like, I was from Connecticut. So like going to Spelman, it's like mad far. So like I was a little nervous, but I could have gone to Howard. I could have done something else. But you know, hindsight's 2020.
It is. And you still cultivated your village.
Yes, I still have a village. The whole thing. But I always wish. So I'm like, that's why I'm like, what if I just get a little MBA? Just a little, maybe I get an executive MBA. But we're going to see.
You just out here doing great things. So maybe they just throw a little honorary doctorate.
That's what I'm saying.
You go speak at commencement real fast.
Exactly. I'm like, I'll manifest it that way.
Howard,
we're going to take that.
Hashtag, can we,
I would love it. So let's switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
Because you touched earlier before you came in and we touched on it just a little bit. You've done all the things in your career. You were working your way up in entertainment at well-established companies at the same time building your makeup artist business, literally doing both. I totally understand it. I do training and facilitation on my lunch break sometimes when I work in corporate America. I would leave, take an extended lunch, go speak over there, come back to the office, take my lip off because the lip was fancy. I had to change my attitude, change how I walk. So I needed to change a coat, put a lip on, came back, took it off, all the things. So was your transition from corporate America to freelancing intentional? What was that move like? And also congratulations on 10 years.
Oh, yes.
10 years as an entrepreneur.
Oh my goodness. It was intentional. So I will say that I know that fear that you speak about. And I tell people all the time, the universe does give second shots at your vision if you really, really believe it enough. So the reality was my last 2 corporate jobs, I was at Bravo for 4 years and then I went to WEtv. Right before I left Bravo, I had an opportunity. I had been blogging for a website. And I was writing about my Black beauty experience. It was just the most dynamic. And this is pre-influencer culture. This was maybe 2010 when I started doing this. And I got invited I took some time off. I got invited out to LA to host this in-person event. And I had never hosted anything like that. And it felt so amazing to be in that space that, I come back to New York, I'm on a high, and the company says, we love what you created. Now we want you to come and do that for us. We can't give you what you're making in television because we're a startup. We're just, but we have a vision and we want you to have a place here. You just got to move to LA. My ass was scared AF.
Yeah.
And I was scared because 2 things. Growing up with very little, security was intoxicating to me.
Yeah.
And so I had gotten to a point where I'm making the money. I have I have not only the money, but the respect and the autonomy in my role. So I turned him down. And I took the job at WEtv.
Okay.
I had an advocate there who was she's still a friend. She was such a believer in who I was. She said, I know I won't have you long, but just give me as long as you can give me. Because she knew even when I didn't. I was there 18 months.
Okay.
On day 1, I knew I wouldn't be there long because mind you, you've known me for a while. You know my energy and you spoke to it. I appreciate that for you because I try to show up as authentically as possible to everyone. And I had never had an environment where I walked in and I did not feel that I could connect with people or create community. I couldn't buy a friend with a black card in that company when I first got there. And it wasn't, I grew to have community, but it was like being the odd man out at summer camp. Like, I felt so out of sorts, so uncomfortable. And it wasn't really the space, but it was what the universe, I believe, was trying to get me to understand is that try to get your ass to move before, but you're gonna learn today. And literally the course of events that transpired they were shifting enough to make me visualize a way to move. So I intentionally started saving money. Yeah. I didn't know what I was saving for. They didn't have OnlyFans back there. I wasn't sure how I was going to make the rent. So I was saving. I was like, and I'm very self-sufficient. I don't I don't have a rich uncle or somebody to call and be like, bail me out. So I just got intentional about that. And then I got intentional about doing self-work. So I started doing like personal development and just like trying to get to understand, like I also was 30 and I was going through Saturn's return and I was having all of these crazy shifts and I was like, I need to do something more meaningful. So yeah, everything was intentional. And I was already doing like makeup and stuff, but I wanted to go even bigger. So where I came to was I wanted my gifts, which I feel are diverse, because that's unfortunate thing with creators. We know how to do a lot of stuff, right? You know, and we can juggle, color, plant things, do hair, you know, bail bonds, everything. We just have all of these skills. But I said, I write well. I had learned how to cultivate resources. I had learned how to navigate different kind of creative spaces that were more on the business side than on the creative side. And I had that wealth of knowledge, but I didn't know how I would use it if I was on the outside. So when I left corporate America, the way I started was I said, I'm going to continue doing makeup, but I said, I want to consult. And I wanted to focus my consulting on getting into the communities that I feel need it most and showing them how to get that money. Okay. And so I started to consult like community-based organizations that were focused on women and girls in my neighborhood. I lived in Harlem at the time. And one project led to a life-changing relationship that was Dove, which ended up changing my life to, you know, put me in the role that I've been in now for almost 10 years. But I love it. Yeah, it's just like the intention was there because I felt like I was on fire. Like I literally felt like I was sitting in a pot and I was going to either die or jump out. And every day I said, well, what am I doing to make sure I can jump out and land on my feet? But yeah, it was a very, it was a curious time because there was no roadmap for what I was building. But what I saw was, if I don't get myself out of here, I don't want to become a lifer in this space.
I love that.
Yeah. So that was the intentional meditation, was get me off this plantation.
I feel like so many times, like I call them God smacks, when you know something to be true and you consciously decide to not do that because you're scared, fearful, anxious, like whatever, insert emotion there. Yeah. And God's like, all right, go do what you want. But then you get smacked back
of the head
where you're supposed to be. And it could be because you're so uncomfortable. Like I've been in situations like that. I remember my aha moment of knowing I couldn't do it anymore. And it took me years. It still took years after that moment. But I remember I was speaking at an organization and I was with my director at the time. And there was a moment where we were both like at an event. And the way she positioned me, it was like to keep me smaller. Oh, like child. She was standing and like made sure I was seated. And it was just this weird dynamic that just felt like it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you be standing there and I'd be sitting here? Like, it just didn't seem right. And it made me feel so small.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I grew my business, I would have these life-changing experiences like outside, like when we were at She Leads.
Yes, that was
life-changing. I was like, this is incredible. And that was one of my first engagements where I had been flown out.
Oh, yeah.
I was in the Ritz-Carlton.
Come on.
I was paid to be there. It was one of those experiences.
You was looking good. You had this persimmon dress on. I remember there was a persimmon dress.
Yes.
You better not call this red. It is persimmon.
And then I had to turn back around and go into an office where I felt unappreciated, undervalued. And that dissonance made me so uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's why I was like, I need to be on one side or the other side. I think for a long time, doing both was just fine. I was perfectly fine.
But you were in your fullness. Yes. You were in your, not your career fullness. You were in your Kimberly
I was myself.
fullness.
And it just felt so amazing. I was like, I need to be like this all the time. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I absolutely love about you is that I feel like you just radiate confidence. Like no matter what room I've seen you walk into, like no matter like, and I've seen you at a lot of events, and we all know that things are not perfect at events. No. At all. Especially in the role that you have where you've had to like keep an audience going, you're hosting, you're this.
Oh yeah, y'all don't know what's happening in the inner ear.
100%. Like you're hearing all the things and you're just working, but you remain so confident. So I want to ask you, how did you grow your confidence?
Oh, wow. So thank you for that question and thank you for that kudos because this is something that was not always a part of my nature. Like I grew up a very self-conscious kid. I had body confidence issues. I was chubby. I had acne. I had hair, dissatisfaction. I had a lot of things. But my mother and my father were very affirming of us. And so you learn by demonstration, so even when I was at my lowest, I still knew how to affirm the things that I knew were great about me. But I will tell you, I mentioned Dove earlier. So when I transitioned into the role of being a self-esteem educator for Dove, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. And I had, they had seen me do something similar and were like, we like what you did and we'd love for you to come and do it with us on a larger scale. But that is a referendum on your authenticity. Mm-hmm. It is like a reckoning. And I was like, okay, Dre, if you're going to be tasked with standing up in front of thousands of kids and facilitating this self-worth curriculum, these tools, you better use them your damn self. And one of the things is I'm going to tell y'all, kids, they don't care about your resume. They don't care about your LinkedIn profile, how many streams you're getting. They really do not care because you're still just another strange grown up. And what I realized was all of the things that I could have used to dress up my imposter syndrome or my, low self-valuation, they were going to see right through. So I went into doing the work. I did personal development work. I got myself broken down to the foundation. And it wasn't about breaking me down to build me up. It was really me saying, like, what am I holding on to? What mask am I wearing? And I wasn't really wearing them, but I do realize that I was operating in a place where I didn't allow myself to have flaws. I didn't want to have cracks. And what really works is the cracks. So what helps me every day in doing this work is telling the story of where I always say, share what went wrong, not just what went right. And so I just started talking authentically about my own struggles. Like I was sitting here giving valuable tools and cognitive and because a big part of what we do is just really trying to norm shift. So it's critical thinking. So I'm like, if I'm sharing my, experience in a way where I'm like, okay, and not caring about being judged. And I do that not just with children, but with everyone. You know what I'm saying? Like
I made you take one of these classes.
I'm gonna tell you, and it's not, I'm gonna be honest. And since we're talking career, one example of that is like I tell people to share their meantime moments, because Instagram and LinkedIn, they're very much highlight reels. And I remember, this is one meantime moment that is humbling AF, is when I left I was making 6 figures. I was doing really well. And I decided to launch my consultancy. I cut my salary by 2/3. I left in 2013. I had saved up what I thought was a little nest egg. I thought I was Scrooge McDuck swimming around in the coins. It lasted me 6 months.
Got it.
So 2014 was you spoke earlier in your season about having a humbling year in 2022. 2014 was like, child. It was ground zero. I learned a lot about taxes. Hello. I learned a lot about preparation. And I also learned that if I wanted this, if I made it through this year, I was going to have it, because it was that bad. So one of the humbling meantime moments was mama had to close the gap, and makeup wasn't doing it. And my consultant, and I hadn't got the Dove job yet. So sis was working the auto show. I had a job where I was sampling organic mayonnaise at Whole Foods twice a week. And you don't understand, I was praying nobody that I knew would come in there. And I was really good at it, y'all. And I really liked the product. And I got it for free. So I was really excited about it, because groceries ain't cheap. But these are the things but what it showed me was like, I didn't fall apart.
You made it.
And and what I mean in the sense of how I cultivated confidence from that is like, is me telling someone that I did that going to take those receipts you read away? No. But it's going to let that person know that's wondering how they're going to pay their phone bill, but they got a banging timeline on Instagram, but their phone's is 3 months late, and they ain't telling nobody. Let you really understand that is some real stuff. And there's people out here that you are comparing yourself to who are struggling, but they are not sharing that. And so the meantime is where you get to meet yourself. The first 2 letters are me. You meet yourself in the meantime, because everyone's going to be there for the highlights. But the valleys are some lonely places. And it's and if you aren't confident alone in those meantimes, then whatever you are at the top is just going to be, you're going to be putting on, because it's not real. The gratitude comes in those moments. Like, shout out to I ain't even going to shout them out because we ain't giving free advertising, but to the mayonnaise company that paid me for like a year, thank you for closing that gap.
Everybody's got it.
Everyone's got it.
And they just don't talk about it.
And that is a source of confidence, because truth be told, we have to give each other credit for weathering. That should be a confidence booster, not just winning, but weathering.
I also feel like when we talk about entrepreneurship, I think that in the beginning stages, when many of us have made jumps, where the gap...
I keep hitting this.
It's okay. When there was a gap that needed to be closed, a lot of entrepreneurs find ways to close the gap that they don't talk about. So like nobody knew you were at the mayonnaise company. For me, even in my career, my first job out of college, I was a marketing assistant, hated it, absolutely hated it. I talk about it in my book. It really was like a data entry job, and they called it a marketing thing because I was marketing undergrad.
It's called a lot of marketing jobs.
Lying. I was miserable. I was making $25,000 a year before taxes. Yeah, before taxes. So really that's like $18,000 a year. I had no medical insurance. And I lived in an apartment, a small apartment, because I refused to move back home to Connecticut. So I wanted to stay in New York. So I had my own apartment. I had a studio apartment above a like deli. And above me was a family that had like 4 kids, like under the age, like 4 or 5 kids, like under the age of like 6. So all you heard, I was dying. I was miserable. And I waitressed. So I waitressed at the local TGI Fridays. because I knew I could work a swing shift. I could work 12 hours on like a Saturday and Sunday, and I can come home with at least like $600 in my pocket in cash
and
each
free
shift.
Wings.
For me, they have breadsticks. It's like a hidden item that people don't know that they have. I don't know if they have them anymore.
Wait, no, TGI Friday had that bread.
And yes, and like they had Jack Daniel's sauce, like it was amazing. So I was there. I also at one point, even when I transitioned out of that marketing job, I went into big finance. I was a personal banker. It was still tough. I didn't want to do the restaurant anymore because it was driving me crazy.
Yeah,
so I worked at Victoria's Secret Pink. So I'd be folding panties until 2 a.m. at the panty bars.
Maybe I should have tried folding panties. Those are a little easier.
It was miserable. I worked in one of the malls that had all of the stores. So it had Victoria's Secret. It had Victoria's Secret Pink. Like the limited, I forget all the other limited brands, but it was one of the malls that had like all of them. So like all of the leaders from like HQ would come in randomly. So if it had to be like
you were on
stripe,
all the time,
polka dot, thong, tongue, all the different things. It had to be in that order because they'd come by and they'd send someone's daughter who you didn't know to come in. Exactly. But it would be like the HQ's like daughter or like sister or someone. So we were in there. It's like 2 a.m. I'd be folding panties, and then the next morning I'd be up giving advice on investments and annuities and loans and home. It was like I'm next to someone who just wants to get like, remember that bra that Victoria's Secret used to have? They gave you like 2 times the size.
Oh yeah, the little
and it had like a little pump.
Oh, like, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like the sneaker.
Yes. They had I was working next to like 16-year-old girls who just wanted a little pump. That's where all their money was going. And me, it's like, I just had to pay rent. Like those were some of my humbling moments in careers. And then also in entrepreneurship, I've always said, anyone who's known me, I've been very candid and said like, I will wait a table if I have to, because I know I was really good at it. I can get a perfect check and I will get the tip. If something happened, God forbid, let's like knock on the wooden table and say that doesn't happen. But I think that a lot of times there are jobs to be had. Many times we don't want them. We don't want to do the job. We don't want people to know that we're doing it. But when you have to make ends meet and you got to close the gap, you're going to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I just think we have to have more conversations about the reality of what it is. And I started my career pre-social media. Mm-hmm. So what I will say is I still operate a little bit in that, in the sense that I don't believe the hype. You know, I know that it takes more than a URL and a logo to make a business.
Well, when you've been in enough rooms like we've been in, and you have conversations behind closed doors, and you talk to the people who have the brand, who've done the things, and you realize what they're actually doing to make money, how they actually feel about themselves, how they feel about their company, how they feel about their audience, it demystifies it.
And how happy they really are.
Yeah, it demystifies. I feel like you could think that it's like the glitz, the glamour, all the hype when you're just looking, when you don't actually know the people. But once you start to get in the rooms and sit at the tables and meet the people, like one of my favorite things to always ask is like when someone's like, oh, like, how do you know so-and-so? Or this so person is my friend. I'll be like, are they nice? That's one of my favorite things to ask, because so many times you go into these rooms.
Are they a nice person?
I always ask, because there's so many people out in this world who are doing all the things to look amazing on social, and then you meet them in real life and they're not nice. Just generally not decent human beings. Like won't hold the door for you. Like the person who looks in your face at the elevator and presses the closed door, like just watching you. Like that's who they are.
See me coming.
Exactly. So I always like to ask. Like, are they a nice person?
I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna be like, hey, nice.
Exactly. Because
it's like a 3rd grade question. My name Dre. You nice?
Exactly. Because like you just don't know, and you could have this whole idea of someone being this amazing human being, this perfect life, and you get to know them. Even myself, I know the beginning of 2023, the first podcast that dropped, I talked about my life in 2022, and no one knew any of the things. No. Because I still showed up.
And you also don't know, like I always tell people, and this is something I learned from doing makeup, because
you get all the tea.
Ooh, honey, it's not even that. I'm at a hotel room of a person who is bankrolling the livelihood of 30 people. It's 5:00 in the morning. Their wig ain't on. Their Spanx ain't on. They ain't ate. Who knows if they've been able to take a shit properly and quietly. And I'm at their door. So in my mind, I'm like, how does that feel to know if I just don't want to do this today? It doesn't matter, because 30 people's families are not going to eat if I opt out today. So my job is not to make sure that cut crease is perfect. My job is to take this vulnerable, tired, overwhelmed, overscheduled human and pour in as much as I can so that when someone asks them to do what they may have not wanted to do, they feel at least full enough to say yes. Mm-hmm. And it is like, it ain't enough makeup in my kit for that to be the only thing that you get to do. And I learned that very, very early in my career. Some of the people I assisted said to me, it doesn't matter what's in your kit because your job is to really make this person, fill this person up so that they can go out and do what a lot of people would never sign up to do.
That's so clutch. I didn't even realize the importance of that relationship between the talent and the makeup artist until I started getting my makeup done more consistently. Because I only get my makeup done when I'm doing something big. And I realized my energy could shift a little bit depending upon. For a while, I had a friend of a friend who was doing my makeup and we didn't have the best interpersonal relationship. And I always was like anxious. And then I got a makeup artist who I loved and was so kind and so sweet. And her energy just came in and I was so empowered after that conversation. Yeah. I was like, oh, never again. Never again. I need the vibes to be poured into before you go out and show. And I think for a lot of folks, especially if they don't work in like a talent realm where they have to put on the face every day, when you're getting makeup done, it's a big day for you.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, unpopular opinion, I don't think makeup is that hard to do. I mean, you definitely have to train for it. I've done it 20 years. But what I mean is, it's not, the bigger balance is is working in a vulnerable place.
Yes.
I am touching you.
Yeah.
You don't know me from a can of paint. My hands are on your body. And
you're right here.
Exactly. So I used to say to people, sometimes makeup is like a ministry to me. And I literally would meditate, talk to the creator and be like, look, before I walk in here, give me something that I can leave with this person that they need, because I don't know. Because it's just like asking, are they nice? Because a big thing for me is, do you understand? Like, you get booked for a job and all you've heard is this person is a terrible person. And I'm like, I used to say to them, because I started one of my first jobs at MTV. Oh my God. I was an assistant and I was a terrible assistant. And I had a boss. Her name is Carol Pierre. She's a magical CMO now. She's a friend as well, and sister. And took me and I was her assistant. And I was bad, yo. I mean, like, I was creative because in my mind, I was like, oh, all that scheduling and like travel booking. I was like, I can get through that. And people would call and she would come and she'd be like, Dre, any messages? I'd be like, yep. Oh, remember the lady that came in through your office the other day, bad, had the bad shoes? She called. And she'd be like, Dre, I need you to like remember people's names. I need you to remember. It's just not how my brain worked.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where she would invite me into brainstorms, like, because I would come up with these really good ideas because that's how my brain would work. And she's like, I'm going to lean to your strengths.
Yes.
She's like, we're going to find somebody else in here. And literally I got a promotion because she's like, I can't have this. I can't have this no more. So it got to the point where it's like, I learned to lead from that. And what I realized from that, I took out of that, is that you meet a lot of people who want you to just be what your function is. And they don't understand that you have more to offer. But if you've been blessed to have someone that leads you or that cultivates you based off of what you're good at, that's what's going to come through. And so it used to be like, I had a boss. Oh, that boss was my boss. And then I went on to work under another boss. And when I got moved to work under that other boss, I had heard the tea. Not nobody, but a lot of people did not favor working with her. She was known to be challenging. And I said, yeah, to them. And me and her, we would kick in. Like, after 2 weeks, they were like, what's going on? You guys seem to be getting along because we are. And what I realized is nobody was talking to her. You heard that she's hard to work with, so you avoid her. She's isolated. Of course, when you come to her, she's going to feel defensive. Nobody was talking to this woman. Nobody was asking her how her weekend was and how her day was. And she's a mother. How your kids? Man, me and her were like thick as thieves in like 3 months. And I wasn't putting on. I was just trying to see this woman because I was like, I ain't getting fired. So we gonna have to make this work, sis. So what you want from Starbucks? Like, let's talk. And I asked her, can we have a few more minutes every morning? And she was like, oh, because no one had asked her. I just need can we have some calibration time just to go over our day? And we used to use that time, and and after a while it would go through, I need you to do this, to being like, well, what did you do over your weekend? Are you reading anything interesting? She started to want to know about me. And I just think that you have to know that everybody is not going to be your cup of tea, but if you realize that your vulnerability creates vulnerability in other people, that's the sauce. It's a sauce. Pretty much.
Girl, I'm about to throw all my questions away.
Give it a question. Give it to me.
No. Well, now
y'all, that's the iPad felt around the world. Y'all watch this. When she opened that iPad, it's some fire in there. I be seeing. I'm like, woo!
I'm not going to ask that. I'm not going to ask that because I don't even know how to make the transition at this point. But
okay,
we do have to come to a close soon.
Yes.
You've done so much. And because these are our career profile episodes, I'm going to keep my last question.
Okay.
That if someone is listening and they want to create a career for themselves where they are hosting, they are partnering with brands in the way that you do, and they are creative and they're multi-talented, multifaceted, what is the number one piece of advice you would give to that human?
Every gift is not to make money.
Ooh.
So what I would say is every gift, it has a season, and every gift is not to make money. So yes, I have had a long career and it has been variable, but I didn't do everything 100% at the same time. I'm one person. I'm a company of one. So what I always say, and this is a phrase I use, I say pause in your pivots. Meaning, like, if you get a vision to do something different or to use a gift that you hadn't used yet, sit in it for a second and really calibrate your life so that it has a chance to win. Because a lot of times creatives can do a lot of different things, but the hustle culture will have you think you have to use all of your gifts simultaneously, and they have to be this multi-siloed business model. That's not it. Because truth be told, sometimes some of your gifts are not to be paid for. They are for the world to just enjoy. And you should not enterprise every gift. So what I would say is pause. If you are in something and you are thriving, before you pivot to something else, pause and really look at, how do I need to set my life up so that this is still something that, one, I love to do? Because a big thing about gifts is they feel like gifts because they feel good when you do it. But when you make money with stuff, sometimes the red gets licked off of that lollipop. Because when you bring enterprise into it, it starts to make it feel like something you have to do. 100%. So pause and save something for the world to enjoy without there being an invoice attached to it.
And what is your next move?
Ooh.
What's coming next?
Well, a big thing for me, I'm still with Dove. I have a really, really wonderful relationship with them. I'm so grateful to continue working with them as an educator and a curriculum consultant. What's next is I have a busy summer ahead.
Okay.
And I'm going to be speaking this summer at a couple of events. And one of the new things is that I actually co-wrote a curriculum for Dove called My Hair, My Crown. A couple years ago, we use it in schools. And I had never really gotten to do anything like that. It was a huge stretching opportunity for me. So I'm actually have a speaking engagement in this summer where I'm going to get to be able to talk about that experience.
Okay.
So it's, taking that to another level, because I was brought back down to like a scholar level of study because I wanted to make sure while we were going through academic validation and accreditation that I understood. I wasn't just the facilitator. I wanted to be in the lab. And so I get to talk about that and how I want to continue to do that. So I want to continue to create, just like I said at the beginning, we got to build infrastructure for our culture. So so that's what's next. And you might see me some other places. You might hear me. If you want to hear me some more, holla at your favorite podcast. Tell them to get me on the show.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm really just looking forward to figuring out more ways to for us to create this creative, equity that we use so much. We are, as Black professionals, we are the culture creators right now. And if you don't like that, fight me. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that. But I think that we, once we realize that, we actually can move a lot of things forward. So looking forward to doing more of that.
I love that. Dre,
and we hanging.
Yes, we're going to hang out.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Woo, y'all, it's going to be brown and brown all around town. So.
I can't. That needs to be a hashtag. I like that.
I mean, we can do that. What y'all want?
Coming to a city near you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All the time. We're going to have you back because I feel like I literally did not ask at least like 3 or 4 questions.
If y'all want a part 2, in the comments, holla at your girl.
We will be back. Y'all, may your next move be your very best move.